In this first aid series using tuning forks, I'm going to be talking about blisters and cold sores, and we're going to be using a weighted tuning fork in order to relieve the blister itself and hopefully take care of it so that it's no longer progressing. So when it comes to the different types of blisters, and I use blisters and cold sores different even though cold sores can be blistering, different things that you might consider. Blisters, if they're canker sores, that would be a blister inside of your mouth. It doesn't necessarily, in fact, canker sores wouldn't be associated with a virus. Usually if it's viral related, like herpes simplex virus, that would be considered a fever blister, or a cold sore that would be most likely near the edge of your lips, and it would be on the outside. A canker sore would be a blister on the inside. That could be caused from a bunch of related things, and it could just be friction based, or you may have bit down on your lip, or your inner lip, or your inside of your gums are brushing up against your tooth or something like that. May have been something that you ate where there was a rubbing. There's all kinds of different reasons why canker sores are there. They don't quite know the exact reason why canker sores happen. They don't believe them to be viral related. So there's those canker sores on the inside of your mouth, the cold sores on the outside of your mouth, and then there's blisters anywhere else on your body. That could be a friction-based blister. Maybe you went out and raked the lawn and you get a rubbing enough to where there's a blister on the very outside of the epidermis. There may be blisters that form, let's say that you have a rash in or eczema or something like that may have, or maybe shingles that have blisters associated with them. If they're rash-based blisters or blisters as part of a rash, I would say take a look at our first aid series on rashes themselves. Here we're talking more of blisters that stand by themselves. And when it comes to the safety factor, if you're working with yourself, just consider the fact that once you open up a blister and allow the outside of it to be drained, then consider all of the safety factors associated with that, especially if it's something that could be viral related or something that someone else can get. Make sure that you take all the precautions you need to clean your tuning forks, and whatever stuff that comes out of it, you want to be able to make sure that you sanitize that as well. So considering all those things, you have to consider the fact that if this is something that's medical related, that you need medical response, you want to make sure that you do that as well. What I'm talking about here is the ability to take a blister or a group of blisters and hopefully release whatever is causing those blisters to happen. Sometimes it's only on the outer epidermis, but you have to consider, if this is my epidermis, there's things that are going on underneath it, and there could be a quarantining of, let's say, viral, the herpes simplex virus in cold sores or fever blisters. Let's say it's on the side of my lip right here. That could actually be underneath the skin that's keeping that virus there, or bacteria or whatever is causing the blister itself. Sometimes it's occurring underneath the skin that you can't see, and you get the results of the blister that's happening on the epidermis. What we're doing with the tuning forks is we're releasing the quarantine of whatever is being held there, and we're allowing your lymphatic system and your own immune system to take care of it naturally. And sometimes these things can be dealt with right away, and sometimes what you're doing is just allowing, let's say in the herpes simplex virus, you're allowing that virus to get into, no longer be quarantined anymore, and it gets into your lymphatic system to be able to be dealt with naturally. So let me talk about the tuning forks themselves. What I have here is 128 hertz weighted tuning fork. We're going to be using this one. We're going to be doing this without any attachments or extensions. This is a standard length stem. So weighted tuning forks are designed to be able to be held right against the skin. So that's why we're using this one. Weighted tuning forks, we have weights down on this end. We have nothing down on this end. So we have our tines, our weight, our stem, and the yoke. That's this metal part right here. So what makes this so well suited to put against the skin is the fact that there's weights on this end and nothing on this end. So if we look at this as simply just a bar of metal, we have these tines that are cycling and moving as we hit them. They're going to move back and forth 128 times per second because that's the frequency of this tuning fork. And the weights, most people think that the weights, the vibration is being sent down here, and it's going to be 128 hertz that comes out of the foot of this tuning fork. But you also have to consider the fact that this entire thing is bending and flexing as well as a piece of metal. Weights down on this end, nothing down on this end. There's an uneven distribution of weight. Now there's weight down on this end. So this fulcrum point of this bending metal is probably about right here, and both ends are flexing in different ways, and that also causes this end to flex wildly, although you don't see it, but it's flexing in different ways than just 128 times per second and vibration being traveling down here and out. There's actually flexing like a teeter-totter would flex. This thing is flexing in response to the weight that's happening down here. So I say that because some people will tend to want to use, or you expect to use, something that would have like an extension like this. This is a gem foot. It's a clear quartz crystal, and this tends to kind of dampen things out and to be a little less sensitive when you're using a weighted tuning fork. That a lot of times people add extensions onto the end of this. The reason why we don't want an extension onto this in this case is because anytime there's a weight down on this end, you can see how this weight down on this end, you add one on here, you're starting to balance the weight out. So this end won't move as much as it normally would if there was nothing on the end of this. And then you can start adding more and more and higher weighted things, like a 25 millimeter gem foot. Now we add even more weight onto the end of this. If you start to balance out the weight distribution between the both ends, you can see how that metal is not going to flex as much as it did if it was unbalanced. Here, we want this thing to be unbalanced because we want this thing swinging as wildly as it can, because we want to be able to vibrate tissue as much as we can. Vibrating tissue, when we press against certain parts of our skin, the fascial material that's in there needs to be stretched in order to do something. Then the vibration that occurs with the tuning fork actually allows whatever tissue happens to be holding in or quarantining fluids and bacteria and viruses and things like that. There's a quarantining effect. That fluid and that whatever's in that fluid gets kept within a confined space. And that's how things stay where they are for very long periods of time. The first aid here is to take the tuning fork and allow what's happening on the surface and underneath the surface. In fact, a blister itself, if it's on the surface and you can see it, it's your body quarantining it from the epidermis into the outside area. So by you putting the tuning fork on it, you'll be able to see where the fluid can diffuse through whatever barrier is holding it in place. And that could really mainly happen with vibration and stretching of the tissue. So what you would do in any blister is take that tuning fork. When you strike it, you're going to place it right down on the blister itself. And even if it's on the inside, like the canker sore, yeah, you could hold something against it. Like if you put your finger on the inside, and you can put your tuning fork on the outside and press right against it if you want to. Especially if it's up where the teeth are. You don't want to take that tuning fork and put it right onto the tooth itself. You may want to put your finger on the inside of it and then have that as an area to press against it. You can also bend your lip outwards and put the tuning fork right down on top of it on the inside of your lip. Of course, you want to make sure that you clean the tuning fork before and you clean it afterwards as well. So how do you hold on to a tuning fork? What I'm going to do is grasp this tuning fork not by the stem where most people grasp it. What I'm going to do is hold it right up here by the meaty part, the metal part, and this is called the yoke. A lot of people don't like to grab it up here, but They think it's going to dampen out the vibrations, and in fact it doesn't do that. I need a way to clamp down my hand because it gives me more control over where I'm going to be putting this, and I can actually push and press with a lot more pressure as I need. I can control the pressure better this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumb right against the meaty area on that yoke, and then I'm just using my index finger and I'm just going to clamp down on it on both sides. So I'm holding it up by the yoke. And you can even test for yourself to see that this doesn't dampen vibration. I can actually get my fingers about this far up before these tines start to dampen out because of where I'm holding it. So I'm going to strike using whatever striking surface you normally have. If you have an activator or a puck or something like that, you can strike this against that. I like to use my hand, and notice that where this is going to be coming in contact with my hand, if you notice, it's right on the meaty part of my hand, and I have my hand straight when this happens. I'm going to strike it just like this, and I'm taking that weight and I'm bouncing it right off the surface just where I have it held. So I'm just going to strike it like that. So once it's vibrating, I'm going to put it right up against wherever that blister happens to be. If it's on your hand, you're going to put it right on the blister and just press down against it. You don't have to press too hard, but you don't want to be to where you're just holding it against the surface with no pressure inwards. Remember, we want to be able to stretch the tissue of the skin. If it's right up here by a cold sore, you're going to put it right on the cold sore and press down. If you need to, again, have a barrier between it, you can put a finger or something on the inside to protect your teeth if you need to. You can do this press and hold, let the vibration run all the way out, then strike again and put it in the same spot. These are small blisters. You're probably going to put it in the same exact spot many times. It could be anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 strikes and placements in the same spot. I know a lot of people don't like to use a placement more than twice because of nitric oxide puffing. When we do first aid like this, we're worried more about getting fluid out of a space. We're not worried about that sort of immune system nitric oxide puffing, because when we're in an emergency situation like this where our body is not working as designed, then there is no nitric oxide puffing regularity anyways. So we want to make sure that we're striking, we're placing. If you need 5 strikes and placements in the same spot, then we put it in the same spot until we see that we have a reduction. You should see an immediate reduction in the fluid buildup. And it is possible for your blister to be drained from the inside or possibly from the outside. If you have a blister that's on a part of your hand, maybe it's a blood blister or something like that where I got pinched, this technique will work with those as well. Or let's say the blister is right here because I've been raking all day and I have a blister, a friction blister. I would make sure that I would get every part of that blister from all the way around the edges and in the center itself. You may inadvertently, if it's still fluid filled and it hasn't added all of those stiff layers above it, then you might need to press a little bit harder on those, especially if it's been a blister that is just starting to form. You want to hopefully get to that just before the fluid starts to build up. The reason the fluid is building up is because you get all these fascial layers that starts to build up around it, and then now you get a quarantining of more and more fluid. Another thing you can consider, if it's maybe you stubbed your toe or something landed on your toe, and so if the thing is broken, if the toe is broken, of course you want to seek medical help. But if, let's say, you stub your toe or there's a blood blister or something like that, you can still put this tuning fork right on the location and it'll start to release the fluids that's happening underneath the skin or right on the surface of the skin. So consider those things as you work through these blisters. If you need to, you can cover something up if it's a large area of your body, or if it's on an area of your body and you want to cover it up for sensitivity, you can do that as well, especially if you're going to have things being drained from the blisters. So who are we? We are NEHC Academy. We have a website, nehcacademy.com. We teach classes using tuning forks, both weighted and unweighted. On the left-hand side, you see our logo for vibrational fascia release technique, or VFRT. Those will be using, we have techniques that we use that deal with rapid pain relief and mobility restrictions. And it has a lot to do with fluid, the interstitial fluid and the pressurization of those fluid, and our fascia collagen fibers in our body. We have techniques that we have for all sorts of things from head to toe when it comes to releasing whatever is causing our pain and our restrictions in mobility. And we have certified therapists throughout the world. We have classes that we teach, both in-person 3-day intensive classes, which are held throughout the world with our trainers. We have online training as well, and you can see our website for those classes. On the right-hand side is vibrational chronotherapy, VCT. This is something that's primarily with unweighted tuning forks, so we wouldn't touch the body at all. We would use the tuning forks, and we get really close to the body when we use the tuning forks here. It's designed for the nervous system and your ability to recalibrate and resynchronize things that happen in usually as a result of, let's say, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, memory-wise, where you have prediction coding that your brain tries to anticipate and map out things. When those things don't occur right, you get some timing errors and some timings that get off. Your brain tries to map out and anticipate everything in your body. When you have timing problems, then those things lead to other conditions. And it could be motor control, it could be gait in speech, and it could be, like I said, cognitive, where you could have anxiety and emotional related things where you had some sort of trauma and now your brain can't possibly, there's a prediction coding and a prediction error that goes along with that. And the timing involved in your body, we use your nervous system as an external source, and we take our unweighted tuning forks and sets of unweighted tuning forks and we hold them near the body in a certain manner to take advantage of the way your nervous system brings in information from your auditory system and your vibration sensors in your skin. So the VCT training is actually free for learning and for certification. You can get to the information through our website, and you can go on and actually learn about using unweighted tuning fork sets. So both of those are available. BFRT is a paid training, and VCT is free training available to you. We have a Facebook group. If you search for NEHC Academy in Facebook, you'll be able to find us, and on YouTube as well, where you'll find more videos like this.